If you've clicked on this video, you probably have heard of Mirth, and if you haven't, you've certainly seen some of their work. The creator, with over 200,000 subscribers, has exploded in popularity from riding off the recent Five Nights at Freddy's game, Security Breach, with millions upon millions of views as a result. The animations are pretty good, to be honest, but what you might not know is a past that Mirth has tried to blot out, a past that they aren't too proud of, and who would be proud of someone's previous career falling apart in flames after they dated a 13-year-old. So how did that happen? How did Mirth become popular and then ruin it? And how did she manage to come back? All those questions and many more will be answered today in this video. So get comfy, sit back, grab a drink or a snack. This is the story of Mirth. So, who exactly is Mirth? According to their about page and recent videos, Mirth is from Brazil and made their channel on October 30th, 2014 under the name Cosmos, involving themselves in the Ace Attorney online community before gaining success in the Friday Night Funkin' community under the name Kodomodachi. From a look through the Wayback Machine, Mirth never had any previous activity on YouTube that has been noted down, with the first snapshot being from when they had no videos and 600 subscribers. Other social links also appear to have gone up cold, with their DeviantArt only have posts in 2020, and their Twitter and other social medias wiped from existence. The earliest video ever made by Mirth that anyone has access to was one that added an Among Us mod with cute bunnies. However, this didn't go very well, and considering what Mirth said later, it's ironic that their first video was about Among Us. Mirth would not find the success in the dying trend that was Among Us, but in an entirely different game, that being the Newgrounds game, Friday Night Funkin'. Mirth made a number of YouTube shorts related to FNF with limited success, until they made a short video called I Get Around, which is just BF spinning on a chair. This was the first one to actually get into the algorithm, and it was a sign of Mirth leaving their past behind, but much awaited success. However, after spending a lot of time on an FNF mod called Sound is Key, the video didn't do as well as expected, and Mirth learned that success would arrive in more simplistic but strange content, like BF and Pico wearing maid outfits. Despite being kinda weird, this concept was the catalyst for their growth, as Maid Nico Pico was published on February 3rd, 2021 after being inspired by a tweet, and it completely took off. The video is a song port that features Pico in the same level he's in, but wearing a maid outfit, and it resonated with a lot of the Friday Night Funkin' community because, well, it's the Friday Night Funkin' community. A follow-up video that added Hadaway's What Is Love was also incredibly successful and now stands at over 4 million views. This was impressive, and it showed a trend that Mirth would follow to grow their channel exponentially, with different versions such as Catboy Pico, Girlfriend Pico, and Baby Bomb getting significant amount of views. Throughout their FNF popularity from February to May, Mirth continued to make small memes and shorts alongside longer mods and song ports to varying degrees of success, and at some point, entered into a relationship with another adult known as Zoe or Enzo. We'll get back to him soon. By the time it was all said and done, Mirth had gone clear of 100,000 subscribers, and the story should have ended here. YouTubers struggling and leaving behind their past, rising to fame within only a matter of months. But they just had to mess it up. Around late April to early May, several DMs came out alleging that Mirth, who was an 18-year-old, had been admitting to dating a 13-year-old fan. DM conversations between Mirth and another individual had surfaced, such as this one. That usually means dating. You think getting in a relationship is just kissy and shit? No, geez. Doesn't matter. Still messed up. Well, how messed up? You're just repeating that they are 13. Quit your bullshit, Kodo, and realize you are dating a child. So what? Now, immediately it's important to know that this relationship lasted from a few hours to a day. Sexual images were not exchanged, but that does not exonerate or leave Kodomodachi free from criticism, as they vehemently defended their relationship, as you're about to see. Let's have some perspective. This is still an 18-year-old dating a 13-year-old. The focus here should really not be in the length, but actually the fact that Mirth knowingly entered a relationship with this person despite their age. Even without sexual connotations, that is still predatory, and had this not been stopped, Mirth could have progressed onto sexually charged conversations. To back up my claim, according to the NSPCC, the relationship agreement builds can take different forms. This could be a romantic relationship, but also as a mentor, an authority figure, or a dominant and persistent figure. So let's start with the nature of the relationship, because that's something Mirth uses as a point to defend themselves, as they consistently said that they acted as a parental figure or sibling. Yeah, he feels okay, man, and I feel okay. We're just some siblings now, and I would never try being a bad example to this guy. Friend-like siblings? Yeah, if he ever needs to talk to someone other than his parents, I will tell, but when there's a moment he can't avoid them, I will get him to speak with them, even if it's bad. He couldn't betray his parents like this, and I appreciate they forgave me. I know too, but this drama should not keep going on. We need to do something about it. Actually, I have no power to do that now, because everything I show is not going to be believed. To clear up any confusion, these DMs are after the relationship is exposed, and yeah, this behavior is still f***ed up. You can provide life advice and be like a sibling, whilst just being a friend to them. And so the fact that Mirth wanted to be in a relationship implies a further motive. Mirth only stopped because they were caught, and I really don't want to know what could have happened if they weren't. In another Discord message related to this, Mirth makes a really messed up and misguided argument. Anyway, the person I'm trying to date has absolute consent about it, and we both search for legal terms, and in his country, the age of consent for sexual activity is 18, but it is not illegal to date without sexual activity. I have no desire for that, and everyone is just saying that I'm dating a child, and they aren't saying what I could possibly do to this child. Just because you can does not mean you should. You can date a 13-year-old, but whilst that does protect you legally, the conversation must always include the moral argument, and in that area, it's indefensible. It's unbelievable that I have to explain this, but a 13-year-old does not know what they want in life, especially when it comes to relationships. They can be desperate, shy, and they don't know how to say no. That person is a child. Also, whilst the relationship lasted a day, it's more the fact that you chose willingly to enter that relationship in the first place. And yet still, through all this bullshit, Mirth continues to try and justify them staying friends with the 13-year-old, and still says that they provide the care and attention I need. Mirth later walks this completely back, but it doesn't really invalidate what she said. And just for any doubters, in a later conversation with HarleyTBS, Mirth admits to a load of stuff. So you did know beforehand that dating a minor was wrong. Harls, can I be completely honest? I knew it was wrong, but not the consequences. So we were aware of how wrong your behavior was. Yeah. Why did you lie for so long? I guess this is my fate, isn't it? Did you know it was wrong to date someone under the age of consent at the time of dating them? How can I say this? I actually searched it's okay to date a 13-year-old, but I didn't research further. Or that says that you can date them socially, that means no sexual interaction. That was irresponsible of me. I want you to tell me everything you know because I want to learn. Because I really don't want to repeat this again. That last sentence is pretty interesting. We'll come back to that later though. Here are some further DMs from a group chat where Mirth is discussing what happened with another YouTuber known as RedKnight777 and a person who wishes to remain anonymous. No, man, you won't believe how many times I said, if he's uncomfortable with, he can just leave, because I really did nothing wrong. Red Knight asks, what do you mean when you were a kid? Mirth responds by saying, what I meant is that he was a bold guy, really. And then the other person responds saying, she had a childlike mentality. He just wanted to see me do a Garcello remaster, which sadly isn't possible anymore, and he said he would reward me with a hug, XD. So does that mean you're gonna meet up in the future sometime? Actually, no, I don't know. Look, Red, I think by hug they meant like roleplay hug. Yeah. But at least you know that it wasn't biased. I guess after he said what I felt like, I just felt like being a total responsible person, and Jesus. It was a mistake, but yeah. All I can say is I'm not perfect, neither he is, I'm learning. Another screenshot talks about the 13-year-old talking about Kodo and someone else and making sexual jokes. Like, oh, you and Kodo go into a private call to have sex, that kind of jokes. But it isn't funny when it's with him, and well, for how young he is, he shouldn't be too involved with them, even if it's just jokes. The 13-year-old later provides a story on how they actually met her, which also implies that the minor actually stopped the relationship, not the adult. So yeah, we met for the first time on YouTube when I was depressed. After we got some talk, he helped me and became friends. After knowing this trouble going, I realized this should be stopped. Not only can this destroy him mentally, but it can also affect his friends. That's why I tried to defend him, until now I've really already got a burnout. Mirth later made a private account to explain more about themselves and their thoughts. I'm a woman, by the way. I really have no interest in minors, but this case really had a meaning to me, but we stupidly confused feelings. You wanna know what? I will confess to you because before I ever had a relationship with anyone. There was this kid that was like 13, 14. He kept following me saying he loved me. I felt uncomfortable. I tried explaining many times that I don't feel anything towards them. They understand now. They are Brazilian just like me. Like 13, 14? No idea, but still, no. Yeah, I told him that he was underage. Yup. He didn't listen and I even told him we do not need that situation again. No, yeah, I was with blank for a different reason, but this, no. This is also something we'll be getting back to. Following these leaks spreading through Kodomodachi's community, they decided to put out a post on Twitter saying, "Hello followers, everyone that's been going through the ruckus, people spreading rumours about the pedophilia thing, let me tell you that dating 13-year-olds is legal only if you don't do sexual stuff, and pedophilia is a disorder. I don't have that." This tweet again completely missed the point. While yes, being in a technically non-sexual relationship with a 13-year-old is legal, the question and problem is not the legality, but it once again regards morality. An 18-13 relationship is still disgusting, and again, just because you can does not mean you should. It is really a problem that Mirth saw no issue with this whatsoever, because let's call it spade to spade. If you think there is no issue with an 18-year-old dating a 13-year-old, there is clearly something very wrong. Kodomodachi's response to the situation continued to be awful as their Discord server was shut down, with Kodomodachi saying, "This will be erased, not just because of my problem, it's because you all are too judgmental and goes by opinions quick enough. Goodbye." One of the moderators decided to put out a lengthy community post talking about what happened in the Discord server in more detail. As a moderator of the Discord server, I agree and was witness to everything stated. It all started with a ping from an admin who showed off that Kodo, who is 18, was going to date a 13-year-old at the time. I won't name names, but essentially this did not float well with the server. Kodo was displeased to see this and began to take action. As soon as everyone was told of Kodo's antics, Kodo's ex Zoe, who had supposedly done similar things, was brought back into the server and the admin was immediately banned. Essentially, Kodo banned the admin who spoke out for emotionally manipulating them and brought Zoe back whilst downplaying the previous situation. Not only that, but Kodo also kicked people out of the server who spoke out against them, or called them a file. The server became split in a chaotic mess. On one hand, people tried to give Kodo forgiveness for the mistake, whilst others were understandably pissed off. The chaos kept going as Kodo began to defend the relationship with the minor in question. It was awful. People immediately saw that Kodo was downplaying the situation, as well as the fact that they were rushing relationships, moving from one to Zoe, then Zoe to the minor, and tried to tell Kodo to either take a break or tell them that they were in the wrong. Kodo got frustrated with the huge amount of drama that sparked and deleted the server, but not before saying that they were disappointed in all of us. As everything surfaced, Kodomodachi started making cryptic posts trying to address the situation until finally they made a full post about it. "Hey, everyone, I will clear the air once and for all about the drama. Why I deleted all those posts is that I don't want to make any more drama than I've already caused, and no one should deserve to read the shitty stuff I've wrote. I did engage in a relationship with a 13-year-old despite being 18, and that was really naive of me. I didn't think about how wrong it was to love someone at that age, even though I had no bad intention. I've read every message about the drama and I will seek help. I really need help actually. I'm sorry for bringing you all in a situation like this. I was just genuinely anxious, depressed, and a bit mad, which is why I treated everyone, including the nice persons who were with me, with bad manners. I really can't believe I did that after I promised myself to be respectful for everyone. Now I see how I treated you guys. I treated everyone bad, and you guys aren't even bad. I appreciate the fact that some of you will stick with me after all the crap that's happened, but the others who don't, it's all good. I'm sorry, I wish I could just go back in the past and just tell myself, no, you can't love this person. He's 13. I don't care what's the story, you don't do that. But you know, it's too late now, I know that. Thank you guys for bringing this community, I've learned so much, and I will cherish those lessons. Goodbye friends, we will have a great rest. Oh, also, if you have suggestions on how I can improve and what else I can do, please tell me. But please don't troll or say some mean stuff like kill yourselves or something. I'm here to take a new page, and you guys are a great help. Yes, they did add that little meme at the end, kinda distasteful considering what's going on, but that post does confirm many of my thoughts. But for those of you who thought this would be the end, it still wasn't. Kodo constantly wanted to keep posting on their channel, holding onto it for dear life. And this led to him making a pretty awful community post that walks back on their previous one. Hello again everyone. I had a proper rest even though it was short, and I realised how much I need to get off YouTube to become human and remember who I am, so thank you. However, this guilt is excessive. I, as a Brazilian who's still learning English, figured out yesterday what grooming means, and I feel rather disgusted and uncomfortable. Pedophilia is a law and a disorder. This disorder, it would affect my life to extreme if I had it, I wouldn't be here, I'd be stuck with a therapist instead. What I did was a mistake, and you guys are just repeating yourselves like a broken record. If you all were to be parents, your kids will already be depressed over a mistake. Please don't do that to anyone, no matter how strong the guilt must be, because we all did something wrong in life, and it would be hypocrisy to blame others but not yourself. And I, we're pretty good friends, and we messed up badly by thinking we could do that. We didn't think of outside consequences, and that was very naive of me. Our so-called relationship didn't last even a week, therefore there was no way I could corrupt a pure child like him in such a short span of time. So yeah, thank you guys for giving some sense to our minds, but that was too excessive. Accusing of grooming a pedophilia without proof is a serious crime if I say so myself, so we are all to take blame and at the same time not. Me and my friends, we are still together surviving this psychological chaos, and I will rise up to them because no one will tell me who I really am, only myself can tell that. This is another really concerning thing highlighted throughout the post. After everything became public, Mirth consistently tried to justify staying friends with the minor, as seen in these comments. I know about that, I know the consequences, but if people don't like it, they can leave. In the end, I'll still continue doing the art I love. Okay, but at the very least, can you not be in contact with them anymore? They don't need to be in the spotlight anymore. They're 13. They don't deserve the bombardment of comments coming their way, and you don't need to be in contact with them anymore. Excuse me? To abandon such friendship we have? No, he's more stronger than you think, and he won't let people tell who he is. And we're here for him, and he will see how the world is right now. If he needs to be mature, the time is now. Humanity these years has always been a fucking loophole of chaos, and the internet is no different. I'm sorry, but you won't tell us who we are, and the internet won't stop my dreams. Do you fucking hear yourself right now? And by now, I think you've got the message, but believe me, this is not even the worst of it. Remember those DMs where Mirth was talking about a previous situation with another 13/14-year-old saying they loved her? Well, it's safe to say that Mirth left out a lot of incriminating stuff from that situation. So to solve that, we need to ask another question that no one has really been talking about. Why did Mirth leave the Ace Attorney community in the first place? Hold it! As discussed before, Mirth used to go by the name Kodomodachi/Cosmos whilst in the Ace Attorney community, but unlike Mirth's jump to the FNF ship, the reason for Mirth to jump ship to the Friday Night Funkin' community in the first place is unclear as information is foggy. However, what does put 2 and 2 together is leaked DMs showing a 17-year-old Mirth talking about dating another 13-year-old.
You do know that I really like him, right? She's referring to this other minor in the Ace Attorney community that she does like. And she also states, well, I guess everyone else knows about it, that she says, I still remember that at the first time we talked, he called me cute. Back in the day, I never thought I would date a 13-year-old boy before. So this clearly shows y'all, Kodomodachi was dating another 13-year-old at the time of this, when Ace Attorney came out. But she would still be like, oh, he's very sweet, very special, and this and that. So it was very, very weird.
So she was a prominent member of the community. Yep, that's how she manipulated almost everyone to support her, I suppose. So did a lot of members know about her dating a 13-year-old? If so, how did they respond? I think 7 members knew about this, however all of them were Cosmos' friends. I suppose Cosmos took this opportunity to manipulate everyone to believe she was right, and that's exactly what happened back in the day. She told me that if nothing sexual happens, she could date a 13-year-old boy, and she also told me that she wouldn't do anything wrong with the child. Now, doesn't that sound eerily similar to what Kodomodachi said in the FNF situation? Now, again, from what's been provided, this is a pattern of behaviour, and again, regardless of whether it's sexual or it wasn't, this still could classify as grooming. The nature of this alleged relationship apart from being non-sexual is unknown, but it would be safe to obviously assume under simple morality that a relationship with a 13 and a 17-year-old is morally awful at best and disgustingly exploitative at worst. And with someone who now has repeats of this kind of behaviour, we tend to go for worse. Again, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And again, with the hindsight we have provided, this just completely destroys what little Mirth had in terms of credibility. Look back to the DMs with HarleyTBS, where they say, I really don't want to repeat this again.
It's very interesting to me that she knew what she was getting into. And yet, when we talked to her about the Friday Night Funkin' incident with the other minor who was 13, with that situation, she almost played dumb. She was like, oh, I have never done something like this before. Oh, this is not me. All these excuses, right? And yet, she's done the exact same thing before, you guys. The exact same thing before. She dated another 13-year-old right before this. Like, right before this.
Mirth put out a response to Red Knight 77's video saying, if you delete this, I will laugh so hard. I will literally screenshot this message and expose you for deleting a response to myself. First of all, you had no context on this situation. Nobody told you I was 17 at the time. Once again, just because you can doesn't mean you should. I've been saying this like 3 times. This is such a simple concept, but for a smooth brain like Mirth, it must sound like quantum physics. Dating a 13-year-old while 17 is pretty wrong, and if you are defending relationships like it, then you really need to take a look at your moral compass. I feel so sorry for the 16-year-old who thought he exposed me. He did it out of anger just because I left him when he couldn't own up to his mistakes, and the details on these so-called mistakes are suspiciously left out. My guess is that Mirth excluded them because they're probably not as bad as them dating a 13-year-old. As for Zoe, he has a better understanding of life you can never give to him. Jeez, and you are an adult? Grow up, man. A young adult person like myself is taking more accountability and speech from yourself. Oh, Zoe. Oh, your boyfriend, the one who requested explicit pictures from a 14-year-old girl. We'll come back to that soon, let's just slog through this post first. And you doubt to have changed her. Man, you never got to talk to me lately now, and you're afraid to have a rational talk with me. Well, you groomed a 13-year-old in the community, then moved over to another community, then groomed a 13-year-old there, and I've moved to another community. Since it's now happened twice, I doubt you have actually changed. You're hiding behind your theories, not realizing everyone is human, even you. Why not have one chit-chat with me now, good sir? You're trying so hard to bring your channel up, but it seems you're failing, and now you're manipulating your audience to feel this sort of safety, when in fact you can't even provide it yourself. It's very ironic that Mirth is saying to Red Knight that his channel is failing, yet this is the same person whose sub count is flatlined, who got famous from putting maid outfits on characters. You're not a knight. You're a human being that can also be open to mistakes. Everyone is human. And if you are going to hold a grudge on people without being smart enough to realize the person is taking a better path, then you have no right to be the so-called facade of a commentator channel. Some grudges, such as those for dating 13-year-olds, should be held pretty firmly. This isn't a little slip-up, buddy. Also, it's really funny that you're talking about facades when your entire career is just full of you trying to ignore your past and put on another mask to appease another community, and your response stream is just you carrying behind your boyfriend. And speaking of the response stream, I'll let my good friend Watermelon the Cat take over for the next segment.
After Mirth's main community post, they went on to say,
I learned my lesson. Now the ones who don't believe shit about me, please unsubscribe. Now people who believe in the change, just stick with me, yeah, that's all. Even if I go back to 1k, I don't care. I'll still go make people and myself happy.
But at the time, YouTubers in the community, such as HarleyTBS and Nani, were already concerned about Mirth's actions as they made videos. This all eventually provoked them to make a livestream response, which has sadly not been archived, but Harley themselves made a response to Kodo's livestream.
Kodomodachi, instead of speaking for themselves, got Zoe, one of their people that they used to date in the past, to defend them and make a bunch of excuses for them, while claiming simultaneously that they weren't making excuses in a stream to hundreds of people that were just continuously defending them against everyone criticizing them or calling them out. They ramble for the first 40 minutes, just responding to chat over and over and over, sidetracking themselves and not even getting onto the points they're trying to make. And when they actually get to talking about what the core focus of this stream is, all it is a horde of excuses. Oh, well, listen, Kodomodachi blocked them now. Kodomodachi didn't understand the problem. All the while, your ears are being absolutely destroyed by Zoe's bass-boosted microphone, which hurts my ears. And Kodo barely speaks, and when they do speak, it's just more excuses. Zoe says that the victim is not hurt at all, that they have no trauma, and that they say they're perfectly fine, which is insane, given that they literally broke up with Kodo a few days ago. They're not going to realize how they were wronged yet. It's not going to sink into them yet. They're not going to get affected by the trauma yet. Zoe says that they don't believe that anyone deserves any backlash over anything that's happened, and that everything is just petty mistakes that have no real merit towards the drama, and shouldn't be taken seriously, which is an insanely scary precedent to set. It cannot be overstated how incredibly wrong this mindset is. Kodo should be held accountable. While I'm not saying they should lose their platform because they're nothing like the likes of Cosmodor, Minilad, etc., I do believe that Kodo needs actual help to realize what they did was wrong, and I don't trust their word when they claim that they didn't actually understand what was going on and mistook the relationship for parental love. I can't trust them on that word, given they've had relationships in the past and they are a consenting adult that knows the difference. And when people mention in chat that Kodo is a consenting adult, Kodo replies by saying, yeah, I may be 18, but I still have a lot to learn. Yeah, you still have a lot to learn, but the things you need to learn are not that you shouldn't date a child. That should be common sense.
However, this stream has a lot of importance. Kodomodachi mostly sat there whilst another individual known as Zoe or Enzo, ex-boyfriend of theirs, defended them from everyone. But who exactly is Enzo? As mentioned before, they're a simp. Let's see something more concerning, like his DMs with a 14-year-old while he was 17. Now, Enzo, that's an intent to possess an indecent image of a minor, and could get you in some pretty hot water. You can't be asking to see a 14-year-old's panties and wanting to spank them, especially when you knew their age. Here's a few statements for people that had experience with him, and explicit behavior alongside manipulation.
Well, Zoe would kind of guilt trip me so he would get any art from me. He'd use his emotions to degrade my mental health. Zoe tends to joke around in a sexual way. There's a time when me and Shannon were both comfortable, but we had no choice but to go on with it. Zoe would force me and Shannon to go on a break to self-reflect. It never works out because me and Shannon didn't like in the first place, and had the thought of running away from Zoe and Mirth. Zoe had traumatized me when it comes to serious VCs, that I get to shake and tear up when he ever asked me to join in a VC, to talk about something serious and how it's most about my mental health, and how it's affecting them whilst they kept insisting to staying and trying to help. It had gone to the point where there was a time where Zoe had to manipulate Shannon and Mirth to go against me, because they think I'm a manipulator and I'm just using them as shields. That's kind of all I remember.
This might be conclusive evidence that pedophiles, like magnets, attract, and this can be supported by the fact that Zoe and Mirth started dating again in 2022. They have recently broken up, but don't get your hopes up. It wasn't a result of any exposure or call-out. Following the situation, Mirth and Zoe also allegedly tried to target and silence people multiple times, according to this anecdote.
Now, following all of this, I do have a few statements, but first I would like to point out that many times after the Kodomodachi drama regarding a minor started to settle in, both Mirth and Zoe tried to blame the minor for manipulating them and getting into their heads about how they needed Kodo and all of that. They were basically saying Mirth had to be with that minor because she was manipulated to and felt bad. Not to mention, Zoe and Mirth are now targeting someone that Mirth had labelled out as one of Zoe's victims. They are currently trying to accuse them of so much shit and trying to ruin their lives to get the heat off of them. I've personally spoken with the person they were pursuing and have deemed the information given to me to not only be slander, but straight up lies. Zoe would also make it a point to befriend the victims and people who had a platform on purpose. For the people with platforms, Zoe would bug them to make a video regarding the drama. A big person put involved with that was Red Knight 777. He had initially just wanted to get the information out there regarding Mirth just to protect the community, and Zoe had turned and abused that. Zoe brought new information about another victim that had been groomed by Kodo to Red Knight 777, sometime after some time had passed since the events of the first controversy with Kodo. Red Knight 777 wanted to of course make a video over this, as he didn't like that Kodo were trying to come to YouTube in a new community full of minors, and because he wanted to make it clear that Kodo was a repeat offender. After that drama, as well as the drama surrounding Zoe's original document settled, it seemed as though Kodo and Zoe started to become good friends. By then, Zoe seemingly hinted to Red Knight that they wanted the video taken down now. Regarding the victims, Zoe went out to gather information on the victims, forcing them to back corners to tell their story. But when Zoe suddenly cleared up with Mirth, Zoe had no longer cared for the victims and their stories. He'd even gone so far as to block one of the victims and target two of the victims.
Admitted to their actions, silencing victims, soliciting images from people 3 years younger than them, manipulation and lying, and that's who decided to date Mirth. Good one.
This situation should have been the one that truly killed off Mirth's online presence, but how did we get from here to now? Back then, their channel was dying damage control, quite literally flatlining at 110,000 subscribers and bleeding daily. Mirth instantaneously purged many of their videos from their channel and went on a long learning hiatus to clean themselves of their mistakes. Mirth returned to YouTube only 4 months after they left to get help and therapy with that video called Breaking the Promise. This was way too early of a return for what they did. Today, checking the description of that video says, "My death was greatly exaggerated. Hey gang, I'm back. More healthier than before and with more creative ideas and art. I disabled comments because I want to take a little break from my own audience. Seeing so many is overwhelming. However, this has been incredibly edited down for the original, which actually reads, also some response for haters and ranters. 1. You are pedophile. No, I'm not. That's incorrect. I've spoken to professionals and they have said that is not correct. To accuse people of something so heinous shows that you don't understand what a pedophile is, that you are engaging in predatory behavior yourself? What the fuck? Well, is Mirth a pedophile? I am not entirely sure, but on 2 separate occasions while 17 and 18, Mirth enters a relationship with a 13-year-old. Make of that what you will. 2. Why do you have a relationship with someone underage? An online relationship is not the same as an in-person physical relationship. We were both teenagers and there was no physical in-person intimacy. As soon as people started getting upset about it without the full context, we immediately stopped the communication. A, just because it was online doesn't mean it wasn't wrong, and B, you only stopped because you got caught. What could happen if you weren't caught is one of the main concerns. 3. You should not be back on the internet, etc, etc. Look at yourselves first before you try and chase people off the internet. Imagine if someone tried to do that to you. How would you feel? I would be annoyed if someone tried to do it to me because I am not a groomer. 4 months is nowhere near enough time to reevaluate your actions. Number 4, you deserve this. We aren't chasing you off being predatory, you're doing it right now. This is a complete straw man of everyone you're defending yourself against. You respond to the you deserve it criticism by attaching it to an argument that the majority of people aren't making. Also, that's such a lackluster response in itself, just you are doing it right now. Number 5, you still dated a child. We were both teenagers and it was completely online. This is very different to the physical world. Ah yes, the 18-year-old teenager and the 13-year-old teenager. Nothing more than a teen relationship. No, I'm not going to believe that. What a bunch of horseshit. Number 6, you're still in contact with minors. I haven't committed any crimes, I don't need to cut myself off from the world, and it was very wrong for people to make me believe that I didn't need to. Again, just because you didn't commit a crime doesn't mean that what you did was alright. Morality and legality are separate areas of arguing. You did do something bad, buddy. 7, I hate you. Well, hate is gonna hate. I don't know why you hate me, we've never met. It's really sad that you are consumed by hate. It's really a negative feeling to have. It's always good to look in the mirror before you go and tear down other people. You dated 2 13-year-olds, I'm not gonna let that one go. I'm sure they all agree that 4 months is nowhere enough time to recover from dating a 13-year-old, and the comment section did reflect that, as many people hated the video and expressed their disgust. This comment, however, was probably my favourite of the bunch. Nice. First the laws and then the promise. Mirth tried to respond to the comments, but just made themselves look worse. You should have kept it. I'd rather listen to my family than some randoms, lol. However, by now, only people like Red Knight 777 were covering the story, as most of the public had forgotten about Mirth's existence. Mirth instantly started making more memes to try and crawl away into whatever community they could. First, it was the animation meme community, and surprisingly, the only people who cared about her animations received them positively. However, Mirth's channel was still a decaying corpse at this point, so they moved on to games such as TF2 and back into FNF. But how were they not called out for this, and how did controversy evade them as they grew in the FNAF community? With Enzo, their boyfriend, poisoning the well and targeting victims, as well as a lack of interest in the situation and constant censorship in the comments, they managed to create a blank slate for themselves. Their channel was already recovering a lot better than it should have been, but the true influx of views came with a new FNAF game, Security Breach. With their undeserved talent, Mirth made a multitude of animations of characters and memes in the game and underwent exponential growth, growing from around 20,000 views per video to constantly gaining millions of views per video, with the most popular having 7.8 million views at the time of recording. With a combination of the YouTube Shorts system and a huge new game, Mirth was able to sweep the past under the rug and gain significant amounts of attention. The trend has slowed down as recently, but as 2 months passed, Mirth had gained a whole new audience, with the sub count now being doubled. But that doesn't mean there has been eternal silence in the situation. Mirth made a community post saying, "So I found out my channel's YouTube studio held for review comments, and there's still people going around trying to spread the rumor that I'm a dead-ass pedo after a drama that happened 7 to 8 months ago. Yes, minimizing you grooming a 13-year-old to drama is kinda shitty. Also, it doesn't matter how long ago something like this happened because it did still happen. Excuse me people, do you guys realize I have a dad and a mom to tell me what's wrong? I had around 6 months of break on YouTube. Sure, I might have left in a really stupid way, but you have no right to judge me if you didn't know I spoke to a professional myself, revealing that indeed I'm not committing any sort of crime, nor am I attracted to minors. Seriously, weird young teenagers make me cringe. First of all, you say your parents are looking after you, but they didn't stop you from trying to get in contact with a 13-year-old and wanted to be their parent. Also, that wasn't 6 months of break, but instead 4 months. You either forgot how long you were off, or you were purposely inflating the numbers to make yourself seem a bit better. Also, that last sentence about teenagers is really contradictory to the friendship we have with the 13-year-old. All those friendships, we were just like brother and sister, you know. I just had a really bad mental health going on. I lost a mother at 10, can you believe it? Wow. Okay, you know what, guys? Because Mirth lost their mother at 10, we have to forgive them for everything wrong that they do. Can we have a round of applause? Yeah, no, blaming your mental health for dating a child is a huge red flag, and blaming it on your personal familial loss isn't a valid excuse either. You're acting like your mother came back from the dead and told you to date children. In fact, I don't like the minors I've met. I'm pushing my away from me and keeping a distance for my sake. You've dated 2 minors in 2 communities. I wouldn't be surprised if another minor comes out, and considering how you minimize the situation in the Ace Attorney community, I have little reason to believe your word. The word Kodomodachi translates to children in Japanese, an ironic form of foreshadowing you might say, or intentional if you want to believe. With everything reviewed here, it is evident and conclusive to say that Mirth is someone who really needs to leave the internet for a lot more than 4 months, perhaps re-cancelling if you believe in cancel culture. Mirth was in 2 relationships with 2 13-year-olds whilst they were 17 and 18. They defend their actions to this day, they support people like Enzo who've requested news from a 14-year-old, and yet this person has a fan base of 200,000 in a community that once again has a core audience of children. As said before, words related to Behaviour are banned across Mirth's comment section, so if you'd like to spread the word, maybe do it through sharing this video around. Support Watermelon the Cat as they make cool videos, and send some support to Red Knight 777. He's been an impeccable source in this situation and deserves some love. Until next time, stay toasty.